Welcome to episode 19 of the 15-Minute Coffee Podcast with Brandon Salazar, your go-to destination for expert perspectives and valuable insights from the world of business. Today, I'm here with Hemanth Tadepalli, a cybersecurity compliance engineer at Maine Mobility. Now, before we get into the questions, I would like to thank Mr. Tadepalli for being a guest on the podcast. All right, let's start with, can you share a bit about your background and journey to becoming who you are today?
Yeah, for sure, definitely. So, starting off, I worked in quality assurance in the software engineering area for some time, at a company called Alex Partners. Realistically, at the end of the day, I think it's really coming down to cybersecurity and IT infrastructures and its relevance into our area today, because we've been seeing a lot of threats in the whole landscape of various industries, and this is where cybersecurity really plays a pivotal role in our industry. If it's from banking to healthcare to automotive to government, every sector right now is consisted of cybersecurity, and protecting that data is really comes down to the efficiency of where we can play a pivotal role. So that being said, I worked on the quality assurance software engineering group for some time at Alex Partners, but I really had a big passion, for network forensics and, hack me, hack the box, and really the core cybersecurity functionalities. So in college, I had a pre-law minor. So I went to Kettering University, in Flint, Michigan, and I had a pre-law minor with a computer science and concentration in cybersecurity. So I really wanted to put those together, and that's where I really loved the concept of where cybersecurity is not just somebody in a dark room hacking behind a screen. There's multiple parts to cybersecurity, right? There is the compliance sector of it. There is the detection and data protection part of it. And then there's also security operations. And that's where a lot of my holistic approach and holistic experience comes from, is understanding how those functionalities work throughout an organization.
And what would you say sparked your interest in this field of cybersecurity?
It's an evolving landscape. It's always changing day by day. New threat actors are emerging from various countries. Every basic landscape and sector and industry are being infected with cybersecurity constraints, and it's really our job to protect the data at the end of the day, right? Really finding the best ways of mitigating risk is my job right now at Main Mobility, is where we can protect the company and the vehicle, since many things are at stake throughout many sectors.
Yeah, it's great you mentioned that you're working on the vehicle. Can you talk to me about May Mobility, just in like a broad aspect of what it is, like the company?
Yeah, absolutely. So the goal at May Mobility is, we are specifically really looking at transporting people from point A to point B in a safe and secure manner, right? We've seen a lot of disruptions in the industry. Had incidents like, Cruise, for example. But we are an autonomous vehicle company that focuses on transportation at the end of the day. So we want to provide the best service to our customers, and operating in cities in a safe manner.
Okay, that's a great point. So let's go to the question of what was a pivotal moment or decision in your career that significantly impacted you?
Great question. I really thought this through, and it really comes down to where an individual that wants to take a big step in their life of in a certain industry, and that was actually me considering going back to school after finishing my undergraduate career. So I'm finishing up my master's at University of California, Berkeley, my master's in cybersecurity. And, I realized that there's two ways about, cybersecurity, is that you can stay in industry as well as, learn and grow and develop. And it really took a big step forward to say that I really want to network and meet others in the industry, and I think that the best way to do that is by getting a degree and really focusing on your niche skills that you are really passionate about, right? So what I'm passionate about in cybersecurity, there are a few things. There's cybersecurity risk management, and there's also cybersecurity forensics and detection response. Really understanding the functionalities of cybersecurity. And the best way to learn in today's industry within cybersecurity is to work with those individuals that are also doing the similar jobs. And that's where grad school comes into play, is that graduate school is a place for you to grow and network with others that have the same ideologies, of your industry and passions.
I mean, yeah, that's a great point with making the decision of going to grad school. So Was it almost like that you decided not to, wanted to, or do you have your mind set on it once you came out of college or a little while after?
Yeah, I was definitely taking a look at this as I was finishing up my senior year in college. Is that I really wanted to go to a prestigious school, since UC Berkeley is currently the number one public institute and also the number one university for cybersecurity. It was definitely a goal of mine since I've had experience while in college, working full time well as attending college. I met the requirements of attending grad school.
I mean, yeah, that's great. It's an honor to be. It's probably an honor to be at that school because they probably have stellar programs.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, the professors are top notch.
Yeah,
The program itself is top notch, and the resources that they are providing to the students is just fulfilling and amazing.
yeah, it's amazing to hear. So let's go to the question of how was your experience at Google?
Great question. I really liked it. I really loved it. I think there were great attributions that came into place of the impact that I've made at Google. So specifically at Google, I was under Google Cloud and under a division called Mandiant. And strategic consulting was my experience and role there. And that was mainly working with clients, specifically that were tied to Mandiant and Google Cloud, performing tabletop exercises, security program assessments, crown jewels assessments, Active Directory assessments, but really strategizing ways that there's no potential cyber risk for those clients. There's going to be always risk no matter what, but really my goal was to mitigate that risk by working with clients and understanding their current profile of their infrastructure and ways that we can protect it further by enhancing the best recommendations at the end of the day.
So, as someone who's interested in cybersecurity, have you ever gotten into ethical hacking or penetration testing?
Absolutely. From the vehicle side, there's penetration testing, and from the infrastructure level, there's penetration testing. I've worked with the blue team, red team, and even purple team for different reports that we have to give to clients. And from the ethical hacking standpoint, there's a lot to it. There's Wireshark. There's a lot of tools that you can use currently that are free and open source, where you can just download on your computer and start exploring, understanding how PCAPs work from the network instances. And I think one of the biggest things that we've seen in industry is how cloud security and penetration testing come together. Because realistically, not everything is hardcore melted onto a hard disk or hard. There's a lot of stuff that's in the cloud, right? And finding the best ways and the best access points to access that information is what it comes to at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's a great point. So, as someone who's recently graduated college and someone now who's in college for their master's, what are the most transferable skills you've learned from college that have helped you throughout your career?
Absolutely. Um, I would say I've had an interesting background since I was working full time as well as attending college as an undergrad, during classes and off classes as well. It really comes down to prioritizing your time, because I'm kind of doing the same thing now too, is where I am a part-time student at UC Berkeley and full-time working. It really comes down to how can you manage your time effectively for any student that wants to take this route, especially in cybersecurity. Because if you are, for example, on the security operations center team, you are 24/7, 365, finding those detections and mitigating risks from various tools, using CrowdStrike, SentinelOne, whatever it may be, but really monitoring your company's infrastructure. Compared to somebody that is more on the governance, risk, and compliance side, your day-to-day jobs are going to be different. And so it really depends on the role that you really want to take and how you're going to manage your time. But I think the skills that I've learned in the classroom as well as outside the classroom can definitely be correlated because of the work that I've been doing outside and where I can relate it to what I've been learning in class. The best part about graduate schools is that, or any program in graduate schools, is that they really want to see you have that experience in the industry because they want you to relate it to what you're learning in class at the end of the day.
I mean, yeah, you mentioned the point of how part-time school and then full-time job. From what I've seen, I've always seen those kids as being the hardest working and usually the smartest people. That's a round of applause if you're able to do that. Because I've seen it firsthand. It's extremely hard to manage school and a full-time job at the same time. So that's an incredible achievement already. So
Thank
then
you.
back
Thank
to
you.
the
Appreciate
yeah,
that.
yeah. So back to the your job, what is the best part of what you do for your job?
The best part of my job, that's a great question. So, obviously, coming to May Mobility, before coming to May Mobility, I was in the startup sector for some time, working with small, medium-sized companies, and before that, I was at Google. And I think really what it comes down to at my job is working with the cutting edge technology to really develop the future of autonomous vehicles and transportation. That's something that you've been seeing already online and in the web is, Tesla with the autonomous vehicle feature that they have in all their vehicles. But really, we have all these self-driving cars, but there has to be cybersecurity behind it. So a lot of my job and the fulfilling part is the research that I do and then really ability to making sure that our company is secure and making sure that the future of mobility is secure. There's different parts of it because cars can't just drive by itself. There has to be somebody inside the car, and those are lives, right? At the end of the day, is how can we protect lives and making sure that someone gets from point A to point B securely?
Yeah, a great point. Also, it's not a lot of people don't really conceptualize how much work is really put into the cybersecurity part of, especially with something like automation and drive car that could drive itself. Like in simple terms, think of a car that could drive itself. Yeah, that's pretty cool. But then think about there's terrible people who try to hack it and then do terrible damage with those things. But they're weapons. Like any cars are weapons. So if you think of it, having cybersecurity in a car is very essential. It's probably one of the most essential things of having that car because it protects it from vulnerabilities. So
Yeah,
that's a
100%. No, and especially with now people having access to apps and controlling their
yeah
vehicles, right? Is the information that you're putting in an app, like how secure and what are ways that we can secure that information is really what comes down to it. Now, for example, like Hyundai, vehicles, you can summon the vehicle to you or even Tesla, right? And who has access to that is you through that app. But what policies are in that app for you to enable those controls really comes down to the cybersecurity governance part of it.
yeah. And my thought process on it is that like anything could realistically be. Well, I wouldn't want to say anything, but I would say mainly anything could be hacked if you think of it. There's nothing that's on. I don't think there's really anything that's unhackable. Like so, as secure as it is, there's definitely flaws in anything that's made. So it's not. It definitely is concerning and to an extent, but it's definitely going to be innovative, and there's going to be a lot of solutions that come across in the future.
Oh yeah, 100%. And we've seen, already attacks, just from the automotive and even autonomous vehicle standpoint is that, a lot of these attacks could even manipulate like sensor data. We have GPS spoofing or even compromised decision-making algorithms. A lot of that poses a risk to passenger safety at the end of the day. We've seen, a lot of companies performing over-the-air updates. A lot of this is being really essential for maintaining vehicle software and, patching those vulnerabilities. But really is the cybersecurity behind this because we need to secure the OTA process, and that's really critical to prevent attackers from exploiting it to inject malicious code.
Yeah, and so, is there really any downtime to actually upgrade these types of cars? Like, is there really any downtime that you guys are given to just implement software updates?
Yeah, I guess from a broader aspect, there is, but you need to maintain those current controls that you are putting in place.
Yeah,
That's really where penetration testing comes into place, is that after every version control of software that a vehicle is getting, for example, there has to be at least a control at the company or from an audit perspective is to perform a penetration test because new code. Right, is secure code. It's like, how are you putting secure code inside the vehicle? Are the developers using best practices from a cybersecurity standpoint to push that code into the data frame at the end of the day?
yeah, that's an amazing point. So this is actually our last question. What is your best advice to someone in college right now?
Great question. Really take advantage of your resources on campus. I know that's a very generic statement, but it is true. I think anybody in college, especially if you are looking for an internship or whatever, I would definitely, find those opportunities to really find what you're passionate about. There's a lot of networking groups out there for professionals and young professionals. This can be found on Discord or even through LinkedIn. I highly recommend, joining those groups and start working with other folks that are that are also having that same mindset of what you want to accomplish in the near future. I would also take into considerations working with professors on campus on research that they are doing, because believe it or not, that's going to be very useful if you plan on going to graduate school or even PhD school, is that they want to see what research that you have conducted. I think that's another important factor is because the research that you are working with professors on is that you can actually present at conferences too. And presenting at conferences will get your name out too with other industry professionals for job opportunities or whatever it may be, but also mainly to give you the exposure of what you want to achieve.
Yeah, and definitely the point of networking. Definitely want to network and create genuine connections because in the long run and short term, it's gonna if you network effectively, you're gonna be you're gonna be that person who's trustworthy and like a professor's gonna vouch for. So let's say it's between you and someone else going for the grad school position. If you keep working with professors and you network efficiently, you're gonna have a lot of people to vouch for you when it comes down to the time of selecting who it's gonna be. So that's a great point of why you should network.
Absolutely, 100%. I think networking through LinkedIn, Discord, any channels that really come up, that's the best way to put your foot forward, especially for folks that want to get into cybersecurity. Do capture the flags, join CTFs online or hackathons, attend events in the tech industry in your local area. That's really the best way to navigate the space currently, is to stay up to trend with the industry.
Yeah, and another point is, let's say you know 10 people for just example for a date. This is just a math thing. Let's say you know 10 people, right? And those 10 people know 10 people, and those 10 people know 10 people. You already have a great network that you're just not utilizing if you're not networking properly. So another great point with networking, if you have genuine connections with those first 10 people that you know, and they can help you with those other 10 people that they know, you already have a network that's invaluable.
Exactly. No, point on for sure. Definitely.
Yeah.
And then
All right, now this wraps up episode 19 of the 15-minute coffee podcast with Brandon Salazar. We hope you've enjoyed gaining insights from our guests and exploring the world of business with us. Don't forget to check out the podcast on our social media at the 15-minute coffee podcast on YouTube and Instagram for upcoming episodes. Until next time, stay curious and keep learning.